Hey y'all, Monk Joseph here with the Broken Buddha. Today we're gonna finish up the Sages series and go ahead and talk about Yehoshua, short for or just shortened down to Yeshua. You probably know him as Jesus, and Christianity. All right, so this is probably going to be slightly controversial because I do not have a typical train of thought for a Christian, at least from my experience. There are a lot of different types of Christians out there, but for some reason, um, I don't know, born again Christians seem to need to feel the need to like monopolize on going to heaven for some reason, and it's very. I grew up born again Christian, but it's very interesting as you develop as an adult and a human being. You go to different places of like logic and study, and there is actually a lot to be said for the path of enlightenment as laid before by Yeshua. And I will be calling him Yeshua for the duration of the video if I didn't say that already. Um, Yeah. So there's actually a part in the book of Matthew that says that you just have to know the name of your sage to get into the a positive afterlife. Which, it's gonna be funny if a lot of people get there and they don't even know the name Yeshua. Like, what's his name? Jesus. Like, nobody here by that name. See you later. But let's go ahead and get into some of it. So most people are familiar with the majority of the story. I'm going to tell you the perspective of it from somebody from a realized Dzogchen yogi. Who has cross-studied all the religions and seen all the parallels that are just like screaming at us to pay attention, guys. It's not that cryptic when you get into it if you're studying the right stuff. I mean, you don't gotta find the stuff that coincides with each other. They're all just saying the exact same thing. And when you get into Gnostic Christianity, you get more of that. So the only reason why I do not believe in the rituals that born again Christians do is the same reason I don't believe in the Vajrasattva ritual that the Buddhists do, because I've done both. I grew up with one, doing it adamantly, then I learned one later as an adult, and then I've had the experience of realization. So why that matters is because when you have the visions of realization, you have that experience because you cleared enough karmic traces. What you may understand as sin, karmic traces doesn't mean good or bad. It's more about perception than it is whether or not you like what you're experiencing in life or not, if that makes any sense. Um, but yeah, so if it was possible to do a ritual that would clear off all sin or negative karmic traces, if that was possible, you would instantly go into Rigpa and the realization visions, because that's what occurs when you get rid of the mud or the karma that's blocking you from seeing that. That's causing you to experience things the way that you experience things. So I mean, like, you'd literally do the Vajrasattva prayer like 108 times or 108,000 times, and then bam, you'd be like a Vajra master, just in full control, at will. But it would probably be like all the time. It wouldn't be something you'd be able to control, which is not the point. But yeah, the same thing. Like, you would, you know, do the ritual, and then you would be experiencing visions. So unless you're experiencing, the visions of realization, then that's not 100% purification ritual. I'm not saying that there's not some sort of benefit to it. um, Seeing life in a infinite cyclic manner, it could just be a quicker way to come back as a human. I mean, the Buddhists say it's very difficult to attain a human body, and it could just be some type of shortcut back to being a human instead of wasting a few kalpas or eons. But I mean, you're gonna have to face your karma no matter what. Like, that's just what it is. Um, the way a Gnostic Christian perceives these things, there's a lot of like scary and cool things in the Gnostic scriptures, right? And Gnostic just means to know. So I am a to know Christian, or I believe that salvation is gained through obtaining knowledge of Yeshua, if you will. And so that's my path. And that's why I've gone down the path that I have, and that I am where I am standing here. But there are some interesting things to note. There is a huge tone in Gnostic Christianity where, because we martyred Yeshua, that to attain salvation, we have to get martyred, which means you would have to not only have the faith in Yeshua, but spread love and compassion until somebody murders you for it. So that's why it's not as simple as like, I did these two rituals, I can do whatever I want, and there will never be consequences. And like, we see it in our society, and it's really destroyed the tone of like, walking a sage path or being a Christian. Like, it's really messed things up. Um, but yeah, so there's stuff in the Gnostic scriptures that say that you have to get martyred to go to heaven, and you'll keep trying until you get martyred. um, let's see what else. I'm not going to get too heavy into the Gnostic scriptures. I just wanted to paint a different picture. And about baptism, I noticed something really neat as I've gone studying Christianity through the ages. Um, Baptism comes from the word photismos, meaning light. And it's very interesting. I want to note this as a Gnostic uh, Christian Dzogchen cave yogi. That hold up, yeah. So with the photismos baptism, when you go through the visions of Dzog, I had to think about how to say it. When you go through the visions of realization, you you encounter what is known as Vajra water. It's light. It looks like water, but it's light. Um, and when you experience that, it means you have cleansed to a certain point that you could experience that, and that would be what I understand. Just cross studying all religion, that is your baptism. When you have the realization visions, you have cleared enough sin or karma to come face to face with the all that is Yeshua, Vajrapani, whatever you know it as. I don't really care. All the scriptures say the name is long gone, so it doesn't really matter what it is originally called. Yeah, but even and to that point, I said in one of the other videos, it was the Buddhist, the Tibetan Buddhist, who said that a being will manifest within itself when it is itself. So like, and everybody knows of the miraculous conception of Yeshua. So nobody ever really talks about it in Buddhism, but it is interesting that this one group that has information goes back to ancient times. It's like, hey, when a being pops up miraculously, that's that existence and it everything incarnate. And it happened, and nobody was really paying attention. And even though we have that information, nobody really pays attention to that. So that's what really goes into it. And then I'm not going to get into the whole existential of what is this existence, what is the idea of God. I mean, if you understand the universal laws of karma and how it affects what we experience and what we see, then you have an idea of how unfathomable the all that is that can't be understood is. Just trying to even talk about it, I feel like I'm going to like tongue twist it and just like fall out of my mouth, knot it or something. So, yeah, but I started all these things very, very young. I was very heavily indoctrinated by a group that is a specific church that is known to be cult-like in their behavior towards their congregants. Yeah, they're not allowed in some states, and most people in the city that they are mainly based out of don't like them. But it did give me this core of like spiritual foundation towards Yeshua, which is relevant. Yeah, I think it's interesting because we're coming into times now very similar to what I see as like Rome right around zero, where it's like people in an authority and of highest social status are going out of their way to try to stomp on what was religion or spirituality or sage culture. And the last time, things got this severe, we had to reset time. And I'd prefer not to reset time. So, if we could all just calm down a little bit before then, that'd be great. All right, so I got a little bit off topic there. We're talking about Yeshua today. All right, so let's see. Talked about the baptism. Now I'll try to go through his life a little bit. I think it's interesting to note that to most standard, he was born in a cave, not this like wooden structure built outside of like a crappy motel, which is how we're taught it as born again American Christians. But idealistically, I've been told that it was a cave, and it's very interesting because I've studied as a cave yogi. Caves are everything. Darkness is everything. When you're trying to see, you need extreme darkness to see the light that I'm talking about, which doesn't make any sense, but a lot of things in this existence don't make sense. But it's interesting to have that as being born in a cave. I mean, that really should resonate with the other cave yogis, especially with Tibetan Buddhists and stuff. Hey guys, the sage was born in a cave. All the cave yogis in Tibet should have been, and abroad should have been like, what? There's a sage born, already a sage born in a cave? Like, yeah, it should have been paid attention to more. And then of course, let's see. I am actually going to go back through the Bible at the end of my sutra year next year, so I'm not. I need to refresh on the stories. I am a little light on my stories right now. I think the most important thing to grasp onto with Yeshua is when he said, "I am the way, the light, the truth." Now, I followed the way and the truth, being Tao and Dharma, to the gates of the Shaolin Temple because that's where those two religions merged. And the light I've always been torn on because on one side Zoroaster was there 1,000 years before talking about a being of pure light and truth, which I'm quite sure what Yeshua was referring to. But Amitabha had a small presence. The it's called the Lotus Sutra, or the being itself is the Buddha that is the head of the Shaolin Temple, and that is a being and or scripture from a different system of worlds, here to help guide us to enlightenment. And actually, I'm sorry, the word enlightenment comes from the word photismos. But there is some I forgot the connection between enlightenment and baptism in Gnostic Christianity. But I do know that the root word for baptism was photismos originally. So there is like a water light baptism thing that is spoken of, and I think misunderstood. Um, yeah, because then again, once you have that, you are still going to experience karma, but the only thing you can't do after the visions is lie, because it's against truth, and God is truth. So or Goddess is truth, and you can't speak. You're not the point. You see what I'm saying? All right. Yeah, so then a bunch of dumb Italians thought it would be a good idea to mock him and murder him, which, like I said before, ended up painting what we have to do for salvation. And honestly, that's why I think you see that big like influx of martyrs and some of those, triple digit and early four digit years of Christianity. Um, I don't know if they were doing it because that was the path set out before them as Christianity was teaching it. But yeah, as far as modern Christianity, I haven't really been able to pinpoint. I am looking for it, but I haven't been able to pinpoint when humans. There had to have been a point because, as far as I can tell, all the way up until like I don't know. It seems like up until like around the year 1000 AD ish, like give or minus a few hundred years. Um, Up until then, people didn't really say there's other spirits making me do this. Like you were held accountable for your choices religiously and had to do things to purify that. So it's interesting. I'm not, and this doesn't take away from the Bordian Christianity's claim that they can erase all sin and you never have to be held accountable for anything. Um, but I'm trying to figure out where that came about, that it's something else. And I've seen my life and a lot of other people's lives get really out of control because people believe they don't honestly believe anything. The people that I've noticed that believe this, they don't believe in anything. They just when the moment comes and they have to be held accountable for their actions, believing they haven't done anything wrong is what they care about. Because the next day they'll be spitting in someone else's face and blaspheming God. Yeah, so anyway, so I am looking for that. I don't know where I've been looking for this idea of when humans decided to go, oh, that wasn't me. I shouldn't be held accountable. Something that you can't see made me do that. It sounds like schizophrenic nonsense is what it sounds like. So I'd say wherever that you had, I mean, defining people that hear voices and see things, that makes good sense, And I've never that actually makes a lot of sense now that I'm saying it aloud. I don't think I've ever had this discussion with anybody. So yeah, no, that makes perfect sense because schizophrenia is identified by that two things. One, the identification of the hallucinating visually and auditorily, and then the other one is um, that inability to admit wrongdoing. It's easier to paint pictures for people and just cut people out as they see the real picture than it is to actually just establish any type of being. I don't know. I'm not going to try to understand schizophrenics. They're insane. Which makes sense that one of them or a group of them would have somehow weaseled in this idea that if you just do this to rituals that aren't, there is nowhere that it says that you can do, there is accepting Yeshua into your heart, but that's normal guru yoga stuff. That's part of every enlightenment religion. That doesn't mean you're not going to be held accountable for your. If anything, it means you're going to be held more accountable for your actions. And then again, baptism is photismos, the visions itself. So this is just my take on Christianity, guys. If you haven't read a single book about Christianity or never opened the Bible or taken time to study the Bible in your own time, you really shouldn't have an opinion. That's another thing I have that I don't like to deal with in modern day when discussing religion. People want to just argue opinions without ever studying anything, and that'd be like me giving you an opinion of your life without ever having a single discussion with you. Like, it's not a realistic notion that exists. You're just fabricating this opinion out of thin air, and you want people to respect it because you're angry or happy. You're reacting however you were programmed to react. So there you have it. Yeah, no, the more people think they don't need to be held accountable for their actions, the more of a hole that we're going to get into. And somebody told a lie. As far as I can tell, just somebody told a lie. One lie. That's all it took. You're not going to be held accountable for your actions. You don't have to watch what you do. You don't got to pay attention. Just follow your desires and you will attain salvation as long as you did this ritual at some point in your life. And, even still, that ritual is very specific to repenting for each sin. And each enlightenment religion does have a part of, you have to feel bad. You have to know you actually did something wrong. Know that you actually feel bad about it. You can't just be like, I feel bad, please forgive me, meet moop, amen. And that's what, some people do. But some people don't even go that far. They just go, they do this like these couple rituals and then they repent a couple times or a couple months, but eventually it stops. And I don't know if I don't know. I've seen the universal law of karma act enough that I'm not worried for those people, but that's not going to end well. You can't keep blocking a dam. It's going to break and be horrible when it does. Yeah. Alrighty. So there we have it. That's my take on Yehoshua. Merry Christmas to all. It was I do enjoy this holiday. It's huge. I mean, God slash goddess slash existence itself incarnated to show us how to be more symbiotic and less parasitic, and we did the parasitic thing and murdered it. That's human existence, and that alone should be enough for you to pursue a more ethical life, which would eventually guide you to an enlightened life. Yeah. So there you have it. That's my take on Yehoshua. Did I miss anything? On a fun note, I think it's interesting that the manifestation does protect. I'm going to go ahead and say it does protect idiots to some extent, because it's impossible to blaspheme uh, a name that's not real. So everybody who's like Jesus Christ, that's not a thing that exists. Jesus is a mistranslation from Latin to Greek. I'm sorry, Greek to Latin, and then Christ is from the Christos translation of Messiah, Greek, if you will, which means one who will bring us salvation. So really, what you're saying is name that's not real, one who will bring us salvation. Whereas really it would just be like, Yehoshua the Messiah, or Yehoshua, one who will bring us salvation. So there is something protecting ignorance to some extent, in my opinion, in a slightly humorous tone that, it's good that some of you are too stupid to blaspheme because you have enough bad things going against you. Yeah, it's entertaining, heartwarming, and a little bit alarming all at the same time. So I'm going to part on that. Don't blaspheme. You should be saying these things. We praise out of this thing. We should not be cursing out of it. So have a great day. Merry Christmas. Thanks for stopping by. This will be the end of the core of the Sage series, but there will be lots more. I will be talking about sages as I'm inspired to. All right. I'll even go back and change the Neocont one to the Sages series. So, all right. So, praise be Yehoshua. I like to pray in Sanskrit sometimes, do a little like Om Yehoshua, Om, but a little Sanskrit, connect, say the name, vibrate the pineal gland, dispel evil kind of stuff. I'll have to do a video on that soon, praying in Sanskrit 101. That'll come up soon. So, all right, you guys, Merry Christmas. Think of the sage, you got some time off for his sacrifice if you don't believe in nothing. So at least just toss it around the noggin a little bit. So thanks for stopping by. Peace and blessings. I'm out.